I want to welcome everybody to the Daily Cheat Sheet. Here with the Golan. We are missing the dude today. He's on vacation with his family, and we hope he enjoys that vacation. Well-deserved, dude. I want to remind everybody that follows and listens and likes. It's really helpful for everybody if they go to our accounts like Apple, Spotify, and you follow us. You hit the automatic download and you actually give a nice review. Very helpful for us. We do this for fun and for free, but that's all we ask for is that like.
Yeah, we did notice that there's about 80% of you who are either listening to the show or watching the show on YouTube or Rumble that are watching it fairly consistently, but are not subscribed and certainly have not hit that 5 stars. So do us a favor if you're listening to the show, just as a gesture to allow us to keep doing it. Click those buttons, click the stars, hook us up.
Yes, well done, Golan. It's interesting for those that listened to yesterday's episode, and I usually don't time the episode, but it was our Yom Kippur episode. You know, I was very happy with the response we got. I was very happy with the posts from people, and because when you do that, you're taking a chance. You're putting essentially Golan all the day's news, and you're picking one story to speak about the whole day's news, and we felt like it was important.
Yeah, and also I think you said something really beautiful at the opening of the show, talking about Charlie Kirk's perspective on debate and how it is the cornerstone of American politics and frankly, American morality. I think that episode was a perfect example of how we can disagree and yet we can have a civil conversation at the end of it. Not only come out continuing to be civil, but also we've all become enlightened a little more. We've learned something from each other. We actually listen to each other. To me, it was the perfect day to release such an episode.
Let's get to some stories. We'll save the best for last.
That's heavy quotes around best.
Well, yeah, heavy quotes. But we're witnessing in Portland right now with the riots going on, with this narrative on ice. This is why Israel really always is a constant, or that region always is a constant, go on, because what we are witnessing in Portland and what we witnessed in the Summer of Love is akin to what they're doing in the Middle East. It's akin to what they're doing in the UK right now. They're burning in your backyard, in Spain right now.
Yeah, I mean, what's happening in Portland right now, for those of you who don't know, ICE has said now that they have had, I think it's 100 plus, over 100 nights of violence and attacks, the local police basically doing nothing there. And so Trump, as he promised to do, and he said it ahead of time, it's not like anyone should be surprised by this, sent in federal troops, he sent in the National Guard to defend the ICE buildings, and he went after local leadership, saying what you've done is irresponsible, letting this happen, threatening federal aid and all the rest, which I also think makes a lot of sense. And you're getting the same thing over and over again. Someone pointed out to me that everywhere that Trump has been doing this, I'm going to send in federal troops, or I'm going to send the National Guard in order to help these places that are overrun by crime, and suddenly crime plummets. The people now who are anti-Trump doing this have to justify why it was better when it was crime-ridden. They have to justify why it was better when everyone was afraid to walk down the street at night, why it was better when the actual people who work on behalf of the people, the police, the ICE agents, etc., are all under attack, like it's some kind of third world country.
And literally, though, conservative influencer Nick Sorter was attacked, and he was the one put in prison. And I guess with a couple more people, he was detained. I mean, I want to say Chrissy Nome or whoever it was got him out immediately. But when you're in a facility like that, you're in extreme danger. He was not provoking, and they arrested him. And, you know, people are saying, in a sense, Antifa is running the Portland Police Department, and I don't think that they are that far off.
And he's a guy who has a lot of followers. I think he has over 1 million followers on X. So his story is getting out there and will continue to get out there. But he was arrested on like disorderly conduct. And he essentially was there as a reporter documenting what was going on. And he was jumped by Antifa protesters. By the way, just as a side note, I was thinking about this today. I was walking down the street and I saw a bunch of stickers, Antifa stickers, all over Barcelona, weirdly. And I thought to myself, you know, this argument that I keep hearing from the left, and we saw like the ADL make and others, where they were like, oh, Antifa, it's not a real organization. It's a disconnected conglomerate of whatever bullshit they said it was. And all I could think was, well, then if you're in it, you're in it. And if you are doing something Antifa related, I don't care if there's one specific head running the thing at the top, and I don't care if there's an email chain happening that everyone has to follow. If you are part of an organization that is causing violence, that is burning things to the ground, that is punching people like what happened with Sorter, then you are part of a terrorist organization, and you deserve to be treated as such. And this is exactly what should happen in Portland, and I think what Trump is trying to exactly allow to happen by bringing in these federal troops and National Guard.
Well, at least judges right now today finally allowed him to block federal funding for these for sanctuary states, if and sanctuary cities at least. So that's a good start. It's a good start that judges actually did the right thing and allowed him to do that. What we will see, we shall see.
Yeah, I mean, look, he signed back in January, if I'm not mistaken. He already wanted to implement this. There was an injunction and there was a block, and it's again all the stuff we've talked about. We're watching the judicial system just try to take down every policy he tries to implement. Finally, he got the handcuffs taken off. And by the way, I think, again, this is one of those situations you've pointed out many, many times where we are using their language. Sanctuary cities. That sounds so, oh, it's like a warm
Yeah,
blanket holding on to all these
brilliant
criminals.
branding.
Yeah, yeah. But in reality, these are basically cesspools that allow for illegal activity. They're just safe havens for criminals. And as cute as the name that they've slapped on it is, how could anybody think that it's a good idea to continue funding criminal cesspools? It makes no sense.
You know, it's interesting you bring that up because obviously we had zero idea the ADL's involvement with Jim Comey or the government or anything like that. And we're not fans, as we brought up before, of Jonathan Greenblatt or the Anti Defamation League because that's another one of those branding, right? Both of them. Southern Poverty Law Center, when it has nothing to do with anything, it doesn't do anything to legitimize actually what they're doing. I mean, it's just a great name. I give them credit for that. And the Anti Defamation League, same exact thing, right? Two of these names, two of these organizations. The fact that Kash Patel the other day announced the FBI is cutting ties with these two organizations is a really bizarre thing.
It's the admission and the information at the same time.
Yeah, it's exactly right. Like, thank you for your attention to that matter.
It's like if you went to your girlfriend and said, "I'm going to stop cheating on you with Jennifer." It's like, well, oh, wait, well, you've been cheating on me with Jennifer? I had no idea. So you're stopping and you're telling me about what happened yesterday. It's really bizarre. But of course, as we know, it wasn't this FBI that they were working with. It was specifically under Comey. And when he was embedding FBI agents in the operations of both the SPLC and the ADL, supposedly, of course, we don't have evidence of this yet. This is what was said by Kash Patel. But if that's true, on one hand, that could be great to have organizations that are trying to root out hate, supposedly, according to at least what they outwardly tell us, working with law enforcement to take down those that are perpetrating crimes against humanity. Okay. But if it's partisan and the FBI is involved, it becomes a real issue. And I don't care on which side, frankly. I don't need partisan politics to be part of my anti-racism, anti-Semitism, anti-whatever-ism of any of it. I think that it just shows that there is an intertwining that becomes dangerous depending on who's in the White House.
I'm moving on a little bit because obviously it's extremely important to bring up what happened in Manchester in the UK with the synagogue being rammed, and thank God for the rabbi for closing the doors. I believe his name is Rabbi Daniel Walker. Daniel Walker, and he literally was standing there barricading him in while the person that did the ramming and tried to kill at least 300 people in a synagogue, his name was Jihad.
I just have to point out, I saw a great tweet from someone earlier today that said, "I can't believe my son Stabby McStabbington turned out to be a violent guy." You called him Jihad, and I just want to point out, because I've been thinking about this a lot, it's a very common name in Islam. Jihad. Jihad, for F's sake. And you know what one of the most common names in Hebrew is? Shalom, which means peace. Anyway, thought that was an interesting dichotomy. Continue.
No, it is. But it's also an interesting thing that he was released from. He's facing rape charges. His father supported October 7th. And this is really where security, intel, all of these things So the thing about a policeman accidentally shooting one of the I would say, what do you want to call it, hostages, one of the
Right,
innocent civilian,
actually turned out to be one of the heroes. He was one of the
one of the
people that
heroes.
he put himself in between, himself and the rest of the congregants. He was one of the people holding the doors shut, and he was accidentally struck by police in the crossfire. Adrian Dalby.
Right. And I think it's really important to note, because I was thinking to myself about the Munich games. And what people are not familiar with the Munich games are when the Israelis were taken hostage, and most of them had already been killed by that point, but a lot of them were on the helicopter. Israel had begged Germany to let them supervise and take over the mission in rescuing them. And Germany said no. And obviously, the plane was riddled with bullets and destroyed, if not blown up, if I'm not mistaken. And, when you look at this and you look at a place like the UK, especially a city like London that has such an issue with Islam, has such a massive issue with Islam, that 6% of the police officers that go on are carrying guns, and which begs the question, how many of them ever go to the range?
Good question you bring up, because someone finally had a gun in the UK police and they managed to shoot a civilian. So it's actually a really good point that I hadn't thought of until you just said it. I would say when you say the UK has a problem with Islam, it doesn't seem like they do. It seems like they are openly welcoming it with open arms, and really excited about Sharia law. It's like the old joke. I welcome our alien overlords, and I look forward to being their slave.
So one of the people I've been following a lot is Tommy Robinson.
Hmm.
This guy is absolutely exceptional. He was put in prison for free speech under the UK Terrorism Act.
It's like this is exactly what's happening within the UK. By the way, speaking of, this is why Tommy Robinson is frankly such a hero. This is a guy who, while you can, I know he's been smeared 6 ways from Sunday, but this is a guy who is one of the few people out loud saying, to his own detriment, to the antithesis of his own safety and his family's safety, he is still saying what needs to be said, and he is marshaling people who might not do it otherwise. He really has become, as funny as it sounds, because he's speaking truth to power in a way that they're trying to smear on a regular basis. He really has become one of the most legendary community organizers, alongside MLK and others, in my opinion.
Hey, listen, I agree with you 100%. This guy is absolutely fantastic. And to his life, his finances, his family, all to
Yeah.
protect his home. All to protect his home. And he's been like screaming from the rooftops. And thank God, finally, people are starting to listen. But it's not happening fast enough. It's something like this go on after you see an attack like this. It's like, and I said this the other day, and I was referring to here with all the leftist shootings, but in the UK, they've had these rammings, they've had these bombs, they've had these explosions in the UK and France, and they're not listening. And this is like, I think, a problem a lot of people have, and they really can't grasp, or they don't want to grasp, is that there is evil out there that wants to kill us. It's
Hmm.
called Islam. In America, we have Antifa, which is really a subset or an offshoot of Islamic type thinking that really wants destabilization and death and chaos. What are they doing differently in Portland than the Muslims are doing in the UK with their prayer mats on the street? They've literally taken over the streets like dogs and animals in both
Yeah.
places.
Yeah, and it's funny you lump these guys together, because I'm sure the far left Antifa types and the radical Islamists think they're opposites, even though these days they're just bedfellows. One paints themselves as progressive, the other one is like a zealot, a real religious warrior, but the tactics are identical, the outcomes are identical, the same street violence, the same intimidation, the same silencing of critics, the same trying to destabilize the West, trying to destabilize democracies. Both of these groups thrive on chaos. Chaos. They don't want order. They don't want dialogue. You can see it here right now, over and over and over again. We have seen Hamas say, "Oh yeah, we want to have a negotiation. We want to talk about, what's next." And we've seen it happen over and over again, that through Qatar as an intermediary, which is a bunch of horseshit, of course. But Hamas is always saying, we're coming to the table, we're trying to negotiate, only to find out at the last minute that they're never going to take anything that they were handed. And all they were doing was buying time to regroup and rearm and dig some more tunnels and smuggle some more weapons in or whatever. And they have no interest in dialogue. because dialogue would mean that they have some goal other than the murder of the Jews and the destruction of Israel. And Antifa, you've never heard Antifa come to the table. They keep saying the reason I can't come to the table is because they're not one group. They're a disparate, web of whatever. But that's not really true. There are people who could represent these anti-fascists, so-called anti-fascists, I should say, and they don't. Nobody ever comes to the table. They just cause violence. They just cause chaos. They just burn cities. They're not trying to accomplish goals. They are just trying to bring down America. They hate America. They hate the Constitution. They hate free speech. They hate open markets. They hate the very idea of liberty. They call liberty and democracy colonialism or whatever. And the end goal is the same: tear down the West for all of the above.
Well said, and we'll get to that in a couple seconds. Listen, here's a subject. I get it. It's part of the news, and I mean, I don't really know what to say about the government shutdown other than I've never seen a group so out of touch with reality than the left. I mean, really, like they're in mental institution status right now. And when you hear them talking, when you hear them speaking, they think people are actually on their side. They're like their own Baghdad Bobs. When every poll, independents, Democrats, 50% are saying we do not want this shutdown, and they think they're in charge. They think they're in control. And for the life of me, Golan, I don't think I've witnessed such, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, disillusioned, not disillusioned, but of reality. What's that word? A cognitive
Yeah,
dissonance
cognitive dissonance, right? Exactly. Well, actually, cognitive dissonance is the perfect way to think about it, because they are not doing anything to make citizens of the United States' lives better. This entire thing is to try to benefit illegal immigrants. And they keep telling me on the news, CNN keeps telling me that's not true. That's not true. According to this law, they say, we can't do anything with illegal immigrants. It's literally impossible. And so therefore, you're a bigot if you're saying such a thing. I keep getting reprimanded by AI and by CNN and all the rest, except that actually that's not true. Actually, what this does is loosens a lot of the funding regulations so that the loopholes can be exploited and illegals can keep healthcare subsidies or receive healthcare subsidies. Think about that for a minute. The left right now is deliberately designing everything so government workers, whether they get back pay or not, at least on paper, government workers are unpaid, and they're extending it and extending and extending. It means those families, whether they get back pay or not, at the moment they haven't gotten paid. Those families are getting squeezed, and they're doing it so illegal immigrants can get benefits. If that's not cognitive dissonance, I don't know what is.
No, listen, you're 100%, you're 100% correct on that. And I mean, listen, what else is there to say about the shutdown? I mean, it's like a bunch of petulant children ran into a room and said, no, we're not. And they go on these abstract podcasts, talking about this stuff. But I want to get back to what we discussed, because at the beginning of the show, or at the beginning of the show about our show yesterday, because there's something really is wrong with the woke right in the Conservative Party. And Patricia Heaton shares this. I share this thought that if we don't deal with this now, we're going to be forced to deal with it in 2028. And do I see it taking over the whole party like it did with the left? Not necessarily as quickly as it did. Eventually, that will probably be the eventuality. But this hold that somebody like Tucker Carlson has, and yes, I bring up his name a lot. And I know sometimes I bring up his name a lot because he constantly, he will not stop talking about Israel. I mean, another thing yesterday, right, or 2 days ago, that the IDF invaded the Pentagon, pretty much was what he said when Bibi Netanyahu was there. I mean, you can't, at a certain point.
He literally made it sound like IDF troops were kicking down doors in the Pentagon, fully armed, and forcing people to adhere to their will. The dude is, look, I wanted to say the dude is nuts. He's off the reservation. He's lost his mind, but he hasn't, of course. This is all manufactured deliberately for his, speaking of overlords, his overlords in Qatar and his overlords in Russia and his overlords in Iran, same people he has been on his knees opening his mouth for now for quite some time. You're right. It's all he talks about. The man went to Charlie Kirk's funeral, made it about the Jews. The man went to a TPUSA seminar, made it about the Jews. The man on every one of his podcasts somehow makes it about the Jews. It's it's crazy. It's something.
It's
It's
so interesting
truly
you say
unbelievable.
it's so interesting you say that because I was looking, he had some guest on, I guess, about something with AI, and of course,
Of course.
it got to the Jews, and we the reason why this is so important is because the people, the guardians of the gate, right? There have to be honest people, no matter what it is. For instance, we have no issues with calling out the Anti-Defamation League. We had no idea, obviously, that the Anti-Defamation League was working with the United States government. We had no idea that, and we think the ADL should be shut down. I personally believe there should be criminal charges brought against Jonathan Greenblatt if said charges are true. I do believe there should be a criminal investigation into him, the Southern Poverty Law Center, and pretty much almost every nonprofit group that has ties with our government. And that's just my humble opinion. So we have no problem calling these people out. The problem is the guardians on our side, who should be the guardians, don't do this. You have Megyn Kelly doing an interview where she said, well, I don't know, Tucker Carlson's not an anti-Semite, nor would I care. And, and you
And
wouldn't care if he
who
was
did we just watched too? You and I had just watched another thing. Who are all the rich guys who get together and do their podcast?
the all
Thank
in
you, the
people. Yeah.
All In guys. And they also, real quick, right on stage, I've known Tucker Carlson for many years, doesn't have an anti Semitic bone in his body. I'm like, what are you trying to accomplish by telling us what our lying eyes are seeing? Like, or telling us that we're not seeing what our lying eyes are seeing. And Megyn Kelly saying, not that he wasn't one, but that even if he was, she wouldn't care. What are you trying to accomplish with this? I actually don't think Megyn Kelly is paid off. I think, unlike
Yeah, I agree
Tucker,
with you. I
I
don't
just think
either.
she likes the clicks. I think she likes the likes.
Yeah.
I think she likes the favorability she's getting from it. But what are you trying to do by bending over for these people, Megyn? I don't get it.
Yeah, and defending Candace Owens. And I guess you know what it really is? You know what it reminds me of? Your business. So you're in the movie business. And remember in the old days when movie stars didn't want to be on TV, right? They
Hmm.
looked at it like as it was like it was like they were too good for that. And stage actors didn't want to be in TV or movies. They were too hoity-toity for that. And it's at the end of the day, when you look at people like Tucker Carlson and you look at people like Megyn Kelly, when they were at there still is some accreditation to being on a network.
Hmm.
I don't care how people say, because trying to look at the common thread. I get it. You have extremely high powered and visible podcasts, but it's not being on Fox News.
Look,
It's just,
by the way, the comparison that I can't, I think it was Matt Walsh was talking about the other day. He was talking about Don Lemon and what a failure he's been trying to get into the podcast space. Now, Megyn Kelly's one of the few to go from network to this world and really be successful in it, into the podcasting world. And I think, okay, that's true. She has a very successful podcast. She has her own network and she has people who work for her and it's really working for her. But because, if you work for CNN, CNN's going to tell you, here's the company line. And you know what your company line is. You know what side of the equation you're going to be working on. Good, bad, or indifferent, by the way. But you always know it's consistent. If you're at Fox News, same thing. Fox News has an agenda as well. They all do. Everybody has an agenda. But when you are a podcaster, there is no agenda except for like me, which means that you go where the wind blows every day. And I'm watching Megyn do it. Half the time she goes in one direction, and then when she sees the tide turning, she finds a way, and she's very slippery. She finds a way, lawyer style, to go, whoop, I actually agree with the other side now, but I'm pretending I never said it, or I'm pretending that what I said before is not inconsistent with what I'm saying now. And she just continues to ride whatever line is most popular. That's the danger in someone who is just a free agent with no oversight. She is actually, Tucker is obviously bought and paid for. He has been going consistently only in one direction the entire time, even when it makes him look like an idiot sometimes, which it does often. But he knows where his bread is buttered. Megyn, there is no bread, there is no butter. She goes wherever the cheese is, just like a rat.
and here's the thing, it's like, it's interesting to the people that are listening and to our followers who go against the trend. It would be so much easier to go with the trend, right? It would be so much
Had
more
this
benefit.
conversation today, by the way. Continue.
No, but I mean this with all my heart. It's like, God, I wish I could wake up a liberal. I mean, I really do.
I wish
I
I
would,
could sell my soul and say free Palestine. You know what I mean? You know how
I would
easy
have,
my job would be if I was
you know, what I
like,
mean?
face Hannah Einbinder selling out my own kind like a capo and forgetting that I will end up in the mass graves with everybody else and just say free Palestine. You know how easy it would be? I could
You know
be
how many more,
hugging Mark Ruffalo on the cover of Vanity Fair tomorrow. I just can't do it because I've
you know
got
how
a
many more
soul.
dates I'd have? I mean, my God. I mean, my dating life, my friend. I'd be one of the hottest commodities in Los Angeles if I just, if I just switch sides. But it's like something we can't do, which is like a reason why a show like today, why we haven't discussed yet. So listen, President Trump came out with a 20-point plan. Everybody signed on to it. Hamas didn't say anything for days until Trump early this morning gave them the Sunday deadline. And all of a sudden they came out and they said, and interestingly enough, I mean, if Laura Loomer is correct or not, the White House initially tweeted Hamas's response, and then they took down Hamas's response, which was basically yes, but no. And, you have people like Lindsey Graham, and I know people, he's a war hawk, he's this, he's that. You have people calling us out, and all of a sudden, I don't know how to talk about this story because this has been going on. This story has been going on for 2 years. Go on. This
Yeah.
negotiation, the ceasefire, and President Trump today coming out and saying he believes Hamas is ready for peace, and then telling Israel to stop the bombing. So this could be all part of one of Trump's plans that we pray. You
It's
have to
possible.
pray
Look,
that.
he gave a hard deadline. Sunday, 6 p.m. Washington, D.C. time. Hamas is to accept the full plan, not start talking about it, but accept it or all hell will break loose. Those are his words. Hamas will die and it will die badly. I might be paraphrasing or I might be quoting, but it's basically that. And what happened instead was that he said, all right, here is everything that is on the list. They started going, hey, but what about? And he made clear, this isn't a negotiation. This is the deal. Take it or perish, period. And then Hamas, I mean, everyone else did, as we pointed out, as Mend likes to say, it was Qatar, it was Turkey, it was everybody said yes. Israel, of course, everybody said yes. And we were just the only ones we were waiting on was Hamas. And Hamas said, hey, okay, we'll start negotiating with you now. Which is like, okay, no, that's not what I said, is the only thing Trump should have said. That's not what I said. Now, Mend texted us. He's not here, but he did text us. So I will bring his opinion into the conversation. His opinion is, and it's very, very possible, considering what we've seen over and over again, that this is Trump once again rope-a-doping these terrorist, jihadi, genocidal murderers and rapists, and saying to them what he thinks they want to hear. Because he said, all right, I accept. And he told Israel, for the first time since this war began, an American president saying to Israel, stop the bombing immediately. Now, he did say, to facilitate hostage release. So, all right, that could go one of two ways. Either he meant stop the bombing, release the hostages right now, or this is, as Mend points out, a ploy to get the hostages back because he knows they're not going to accept the plan. And this is his way of like finding the lifeline to get as many out as possible, which is very possible. Again, Trump and Bibi, of course, came out and, I'm surprised by this, he said, which is the same thing he said when Trump made it feel like Iran was going to get a pass. And then Bibi was like, I can't believe Iran's getting a pass. I'm surprised by this. And then they went, gotcha, bitch. And they took down Iran in a heartbeat. And then later we're like, we had it planned all along. Ha, ha, ha. They've done this a couple of times. So I wouldn't be shocked. We just have no idea which way this is going to go.
Here's where the major problem is, though. You could be 100% right. You could be 100% wrong. You could be in the middle. Men could be. I have no idea. Here's what I do know. And here's the shame. And here's the absolute disgust of it. So this plan was what, a week and when was this plan formulated? A week ago?
Yeah,
I don't even remember.
about that. Yeah.
Let's say it was formulated a week ago. Nothing from people saying to Hamas. There was not one headline, nothing saying, TikTok Hamas, your time is running out. We're waiting to hear from you.
No.
Nothing like that.
In fact, the opposite. As I pointed out, the BBC said this is a terrible deal for Hamas because they've got to give up the hostages. How sad for them. In fact, there were, especially because it was Yom Kippur, and despite the fact that Israel gets its hands shackled on Ramadan, please, no bombing on Ramadan. Remember that? Remember when the UN had to, and the US and the UN had to step in and tell Israel, hands off on Ramadan? It's not a time for war, right? Despite the fact that these Muslims basically only attack on Jewish holidays. Well, it was Yom Kippur. So guess what? I saw downtown in Barcelona just genocidal assholes marching, waving flags, threatening people around them. And then last night, I decided to go walking after I broke the fast and walked through some parts of Barcelona that are not necessarily that dangerous, but do have a lot of people who put up signs and stickers and posters and such. And as I've shown our crowd before, I carry spray paint, I carry razor scrapers, I carry some knives, some hedge clippers, some other things like that with me in my backpack at all times. And I decided from 11 p.m. to 1 in the morning, walk around Barcelona, take down stickers, take down signs, cut down banners, et cetera, et cetera. I was having a great time, by the way. It was awesome. And apparently I just missed what turned out to be a pretty violent riot where a bunch of them, of course, wrapped in keffiyehs because they're all cowards, grabbed hammers and started smashing the glass of businesses in downtown Barcelona or in Gracia in Barcelona. So they decided to do that on Yom Kippur. That was not an accident. And just like everything else, this right here is just another example of the spitting in the face that everybody, the media and everyone else, is doing to Israel. They know that they are marching for an organization that has in their hands a ceasefire agreement. What are they marching for? Ceasefire now, free Palestine. What are they marching for? To get Hamas to sign? What are they marching for? Just to terrorize. And the media went right along with them.
100%. And the media is going along with it again. And everybody's going again, saying, putting the onus back on Israel to release the hostages.
As they always do.
As they always do. And I just, the reason we bring this up is just because for the people out there, this is like, you'd have to, connect the dots. This is like, as Golan brought up, this is like this is like deja vu all over again.
Yeah.
And this is absolutely continuous. And what bothers me about this whole thing of it being done time-wise is just like there's nothing. The Israeli government, for the most part, just so people understand, don't communicate on the Sabbath. Like Charlie Kirk, they don't communicate on the Sabbath. It's only in case of emergency. So this came out. These statements came out just as the Sabbath was starting in Israel, when the cabinet doesn't have a chance to meet up. So we're not going to get a full scope of this story and Bibi's response to this pretty much till tomorrow night, because
which is deliberate. And in the interim, to Judah's point, every headline you will see. I'm just gonna pull one up while we're here, live and in person. Here we go. CNN. Hamas announces it agrees to immediately enter negotiations for release of all hostages under Trump's Gaza proposal. That's the headline. Now, does that headline misinform you or inform you? If you didn't know better, what would you think this headline was telling you? This is a lie.
Listen, Hamas came out, statement saying by President calling on Israel to stop bombing are encouraging, expressing readiness to immediately negotiate for the release of the hostages and end the war. That's wherein lies the problem. They're to negotiate. The negotiations, I thought, happened were the 20-point plan. What are you talking about in these negotiations?
100%. To enter negotiations. That makes it sound like that was the goal. We're done with negotiating. We've been negotiating since October 7, 2023. It's done. This is the plan.
Which brings back, and here's the thing. We're going to do a show tomorrow, Golan schedule permitting, right?
Indeed, yes.
We're going to do a show, a follow-up, because I think this is extremely important. And again, I say this to people. This isn't just about Israel. You know, to quote Tommy Robbins, who quoted from somebody else, if Israel falls, America falls. Okay, this is not hyperbole. Okay, I'm not being hyperbolic by saying this. Do people not understand? When you look at, I'm not Golan. You know, I can't stand when I'm dating or I'm on a dating app and a girl says to me, "What's your sign?" And I immediately say, my sign is that I am not talking to you. And that's like one of the things that gets me, or like the grammar girls, you know, like, because my grammar is not great. And I'm not going to be like, hey, Golan, how do I respond to this? Can you fix up my text? And so
Although I would happily do that, Judah.
yeah, I know, but that would
Yes.
be like that would be like the most delayed text strand back and forth between a girl known to man.
Talk
And
about
this is
modern Cyrano de Berger. I mean, it would be honored.
this is just pure insanity, and people are falling for it. I cannot for the life of me like say to people this enough. As Trump said, this is about peace in the Middle East. No, this is about peace in America. Okay, to the people that are listening, look at the UK right now. Look at what happened by voting in a Muslim mayor. Okay, they are essentially living under Sharia law in the UK. Keir Starmer has a 13% approval rating. I don't even know how that's possible to have a 13% approval rating go on. I mean,
Well, I'll tell you. I'll tell you how. Is if you are so weak that you are going to just get down and lick the feet of the people who hate you and would see you murdered and certainly see you deposed, and offer them a state as a reward for October 7th violence and terrorism, and you think maybe now they'll like me. And then instead, as they did today, they show up at your house screaming and yelling and lighting fires and causing violence because you can't win. It's like all the people, I talk about this a lot, is like the people who get canceled, you know? And instead of saying, screw you, you can't cancel me. I don't accept your cancellation, which some people have done. And guess what? Those people are still working. As opposed to those people, the ones who are like, grovel, you are right. I throw myself on the mercy of the court. I'm a terrible person. I was a racist. I did blackface or whatever it is that they're apologizing for. Well, they will never let you live after that. Now they've got you, and they just continue to dig away at you until you are crushed into nothingness, right? It's the same thing here. You can't appease Sharia law. You can't appease Islamists. So when you try to, all you've done is continue to weaken yourself even further. And especially when you're the prime minister, weaken your entire country and all the people within it. That's how you become a 13% prime minister.
yeah, I'm going to give a great analogy for people with Islam, just so they could really understand this. Okay, what is there? Let's say rough guesstimate go on 1.5 billion Muslims in the world,
I
right?
think there's more, but sure.
But let's just say for my accounting and math skills here, let's just say the lowest estimate, and we know this estimate is low, is 10% are radicalized. That's 150 million radicalized Muslims in the world. So I want to just give this example to people. Would you go into a tiger cage with 100 tigers, knowing that 10 of them are going to be there to kill you?
That's a great analogy. And by the way, I just looked it up. It's 2 billion.
Okay, so it's 2 billion.
It's 2 billion. So you know what? Let's do this. But let's be really kind, Judah. Only 5% are radicalized. How about that? So it's only 100 million people instead of 200 million. Let's pretend, because we know it's not 5%, but let's be really, only 100 million people. Would you get into a cage with 2 billion tigers if only 100 million of them were going to eat you? How about that?
No, but it's so interesting. That's exactly right. And thank you for reusing my analogy. But, it's so interesting you say that because I didn't think about this till the other day. And I really want people to really think about this. Tucker Carlson really does have an affinity for Islamic culture at this point, for whatever reason. I don't care if it's for money. It doesn't really
Sure.
matter. He's there. Him and Cat Stevens are singing father and son in Islam. Okay. But you know what I realized? Remember when he was saying, "Oh, it's much safer in Russia than it is
Yep.
in the UK," because he didn't have the balls to say the reason the UK is so unsafe is because of radical Islam. Okay, and think about that. That's how his just so people understand how he frames things, or how you can frame something. Yes, it's safe. Of course it is. It's safer than most of our major cities because we have a homeless epidemic. We have crazy gang populations going on in America that are being secured by sanctuary cities. So yes, everything is framing, but you notice he didn't frame it because there's radical Islams running around the UK.
Absolutely. Look, if you're looking for honesty out of Tucker Carlson, I'm sorry, you're going to be waiting a long time. Talk about cognitive dissonance. Tucker plays a game very, very well because he
Brilliantly.
often, I mean, and that's what makes him so dangerous, by the way, is he won't say Putin is a great leader. Okay. But what he will say is, look at this train station. Look at how beautiful this Russian train station is. And look at how there's no crime on the street here in Russia. And then he lets you draw your own conclusion, right? He's very careful about how he says everything. He doesn't get the leader of Iran on a Zoom call and then say, the Jews, right? How much do they suck? He says, why do you think Israel is always trying to kill everybody? He does these very careful questions.
He's like a demented Rod Serling. And,
Great, great analogy.
because, Rod Serling was, I always say, one of the greatest things. And people, obviously he probably is my favorite writer of all time as far as television or movies go, because he was a socialist. But he didn't let that get into his writing. He sort of like painted this amazing. He had the canvas and he let you paint, or he gave you sort of the
Right.
storyboard and then let you come up with your own conclusions in a healthy way.
Yeah, I mean that was the brilliance of it. And actually it's an incredibly good analogy because that is exactly what Tucker is doing. Tucker is basically he's painting these pictures and he's pretending it's a nonpartisan. I'm just asking questions. I'm just reminded of a story. He has all these folksy sayings that he kind of leads into a very specific narrative. And it reminds me, I'm a professor. And I'm a professor of film, screenwriting, and producing. And there's a class that I teach. And in that class, I talk about cinematic writing, where as a writer, you never want to tell the director what shot. You don't want to say now a close up, now a wide shot, now a two shot. That's the director's job. Get out of, stay in your lane. But you can write your script in a way where it becomes obvious what the shot should be. Quentin Tarantino, when he didn't know if he would be directing his own scripts, was a master at this. He would say that, when he was writing the scene about Mia in Pulp Fiction with the stabbing of the needle, I actually break it down in my class where I talk about, he says, and then the dot on her chest, it looms large. And you're like, well, that's a close up on the dot. That's exactly what he's doing. He is leading the witness on a regular basis. He's saying, I know where I want you to go, and I'm smooth enough to get you there without ever saying the word. That's exactly what makes him so dangerous.
What makes him so dangerous is listen, I know men will kill us because we're talking about, and I love men and I love his opinion more than, look, I value his opinion more than 99.8, more than, almost as close to 100% as possible. But the problem is, as he brought up, it's so hard, and you've brought this up. Once you tell one lie, by the time you're done disproving that one lie, they're on the fourth lie. And it's
Yes.
an impossible game of catch up. And I'm happy that Israel hired Brad Pascal as Trump's former IT guy that really helped win the 2016 election to go over there. But it's so past that point, and now you have to fight the fact that some influencers are supposedly being paid $7,000. I'm just going to say this, go on. If Israel is paying influencers, those influencers are the worst influencers
My God.
they are. If Israel is actually paying influencers, they should be fired immediately. They have done the worst job of influencing I have ever seen in my life. If anything they've done,
I actually don't believe it. I frankly don't believe it because I listen to all the podcasts and I listen to all the, I'm not on TikTok, but I look at Instagram, I look at YouTube, I look at this, I look at that. I haven't seen anybody out there who has consistently been on the side of Israel, with the exception of maybe Ben Shapiro, who has his own vested interest for doing so, I would say. And I like that they're tapping Pascal, right, to come in and do this. But it's also, men pointed this out, and I agree with him 100%. It's a little late. It's a little late to release the October 7th footage, which they just started doing finally. If you'd released it right away, then you could have had the emotional reaction, just like the fake videos coming out of Gaza were getting, and people might have actually sympathized with Israel. Maybe. But when you release it now it just looks like a desperate ploy to get everyone back. It looks like a response as opposed to a statement.
just a perfect example of this is Greta Thunberg, right? So right now you had a flotilla. For people that are not familiar with this, 42 boat flotilla. The Italians tried to prevent it as much as they could. Israel got almost all the ships. I think there's still one, but they might have gotten that one. And there was no aid on these flotillas, right? So the whole guise was that the flotillas were there to send aid to the starving people of Gaza, right?
Right.
And you have an Israeli spokesperson, but you see, here's the problem. It's like, because they've been tarred and feathered so much, people are going to say so. There's almost no point in talking about the Israeli spokesperson that got on the boat and showing the video,
Right.
because of course the video is fake. Just like, Tucker Carlson's making this documentary about, he never, about 9/11 and all that. And next he'll do the moon landing. It's a never ending. You can't, unless this is to people out there. I know it's really, if you get anything from this show, I know, and go on know more this than anybody. And so does men, having the courage of your convictions is one of the most painful things in the world. It leaves you hungry sometimes, literally and figuratively. It could leave you emotionally wrecked. It could hurt your romances, your social life, your social standing. It could hurt all these things.
Your
But go on the
wallet.
one, sorry?
Your wallet.
I said your financial
Yeah,
standing.
I
Yeah.
know. I just had to say it again because it's
Yeah,
definitely
and
hurt
it
my
could and it
wallet.
could really hurt you, and it could really tremendously hurt your wallet. Just to give you as an example, so for people to understand this, it's like I used to be able to walk into any room, and if I had an idea or whatever it was, and I can no longer walk into those. You gotta laugh about it. Yeah, I
Man,
mean, and
I'm on the verge of
exactly.
tears, but I'm glad you're laughing. This is good.
No, I mean, what else am I going to do? But what, as my friend always says to me, and it doesn't help. It doesn't help. So I'm saying this to people that are struggling with this. Just as I put out a message about my sobriety the other day and my sober birthday, it wasn't to self-congratulate myself. It was because I know that there are people that are struggling. I know that there are people out there that want to speak up, but they're terrified to. They're terrified to speak up as what they see as wrong, because it's become so popular, even amongst people on the right, to just be sheep or be pigeons, as David on Truth brought up that word.
Yeah.
And it's so much easier. Go on, but as my friend said, you're the real deal, and people hate you for that.
Look,
But
you know
still,
what? There is something to be said for standing on your convictions. There is something to that. My wife and I talked about it today, where, as I said last night, I was almost. I don't want to make it seem like I was there, but apparently just a couple blocks away from where I was, almost in the middle of a violent riot. It's my second one of the day, I might add. And my wife and I were sitting having coffee today, and we kind of were having this chat where neither of us wanted to say the next thing. And finally, we both said it, which is, when the president of the country has now given approval to everyone to commit violence against Jews, might be time to go. And we started making a list. And it was one of those lists of, like, not just pro con, because, okay, we like our kids' schools and we haven't, none of that woke shit has gotten in there, and none of the pro Palestine shit has gotten in there. And it's very rare that it hasn't. So we're really lucky. And they're learning a lot of languages and all sorts of great stuff. And we really didn't want to leave quite yet. We had a 2-year plan and everything. And then we started going, okay. He cheered on the violent rioters at the bicycle race. He literally, there was documents found in Gaza that proved the flotilla was paid for by Hamas's PCPA foreign arm. Like, that's, and the Spanish went along with it. So as if we didn't know that the Spain government was paid off by Qatar and Hamas and everything else. It's like, okay, proof positive, cool. So that, and then he sends a warship after them. And then it's just one thing after another. Says, I wish I had an atomic bomb so I could stop Israel's aggression. Like every other sentence out of his mouth, he's like the Spanish Tucker. And at a certain point, you're like, do I want to be the Jew or even the sane person that's like, this part of Berlin isn't so bad. It's not going to reach me. And what? Who's knocking at the door, sweetheart? We're talking about this. So the idea of standing on your convictions, being real, being honest, and also being honest about what you see around you is incredibly important. You're talking about all of these consequences. Just today, I'm producing a feature film right now. And just today, I was talking to the director. We're making offers, and we're getting some passes. It's a spectacular role. And the director said to me, I think Israel might be our stumbling block here. I said, what do you mean? The story, I mean, the story happens to be a Jewish story, happens to have some Israel stuff in it, but the script is great regardless. And he said, Because I think even the people who don't hate Israel are afraid to be involved with something connected to Israel and Judaism right now. And I think some of these actors who would have done it, 4 years ago, today are we're radioactive to. And we recognize there's a consequence to us being pro sanity and pro West. And
Yeah,
we're not going to stop
Constantine Christian has been talking about this a lot. He's one of the extremely honest broker, and you know how you could
from
tell him being
trigonometry.
from trigonometry that he's such, and so is Francis Foster. But he came out and he was talking about this whole thing, and he was really getting into his thought pattern and his thought process. And I have a deep respect for that because I would love to hear Tucker's thought process of how he got from here to here. You'll never hear that or any of these people. But as we are running out of time, and we are going to do a show tomorrow because I'm really interested in the response from Israel. But Trump has come out and said this is a big day. We'll see how it turns out. Trump says we have to get the final word down in concrete. He adds, I look forward to having the hostages come home to their parents. He says, clarifying that some of the 48 hostages will be coming home in caskets, as only 20 are to be alive. This is a very special day, maybe unprecedented. We are given tremendous amount of help. We were given a tremendous amount of help. Everybody was unified in wanting this war to end and seeing peace in the Middle East, and we're very close to achieving that. Thank you all, and everybody will be treated fairly. He stresses an apparent message to both sides, neither of which may be completely satisfied with all parts of his plan for ending the war. So that's, I would say, the last quote you will get from the day from the president on that.
In other words, we shall see.
In other words, we shall see. And as we await Bibi's announcement and Israel's announcement, no matter what it is, mind you, people, it won't be good enough. It really won't. This is some sordid times. We are in some dark times, my friend. But
Mm.
yeah, I don't know what else to say. I don't think there
Well,
is anything else to say about that.
I'll just say one last thing as my closing thought, and it's related to something you said earlier. The idea that we talk about this a lot, where the initial story gets all the oxygen, right? The correction doesn't. This is what I would say is Trump does this pretty well, and I think that everybody who is listening to us, who is on the side of sanity, is on the side of the West, is on the side of the right side of history, let's say. I think we all need to get ahead of these stories. I think we all need to get ahead of what's coming down the pike. It's not a matter of just reacting. It's not a matter of just waiting to see and then figuring out what's next. I think it's a matter of anticipating and sticking and moving in a way that we haven't done until now. It's not enough that if the flotilla launches a flare into the air, hitting themselves with it, and then puts out a million stories about how it was a drone, and then we're like, here's a video. They shot it themselves. Too late. Too late. We have to have the story out before they do. If we're watching them and we're filming it, that story has to go out immediately and has to spread far and wide, and we have to figure out a way to do it. If that means we got to pay influencers, let's pay more than 7,000. I don't know what the hell's going on with these influencers, but we got to do something. We got to get ahead of all of this, and hopefully, what Trump is doing right now is getting ahead of it and not getting behind it. I'm praying.
I agree with you. Listen, there's nothing any of us want more than to stop talking about Israel. Okay, I want this to be October 7th, where I was thinking about this as that it's coming up. I was in the Jewish holidays coming up again of Sukkot and Simchat Torah,
Hmm.
and I remember I was at my parents' house in Jersey and started to see started to watch the coming in and the news. And I just remember, the day that changed forever, obviously. And
Yeah.
especially if and I remember just, walking my dog around the neighborhood and just, going back to the computer and you seeing more dead. And then, you kept on thinking this was going to stop at a certain point. You kept on thinking, oh, it's only 50. Oh, it's 100, and you just, it was, and so just so people understand, that's what we went through on that day. And nobody ever talks about what we went through, what Israelis went through, what Jews across America or the world went through on that day. That was a devastating day. I can't tell you, having to go up to my parents because they're observant Jews and they don't watch TV. And I was giving them the reporting of what was going on. And it's a surreal thing. And it's amazing with what we've had to live through, what we've had to go through. Everybody always talks about the genocide, the this, the that, or all these bullshit claims, right? Nobody ever talks about what it's done to us. And that's sickening to me. That's sickening to me.
I couldn't agree more, and I think this goes along with everything else that we've talked about, is these things, they're swept under the rug because they're not fitting a narrative, and, it's time for us to forcibly change that narrative. I don't know how quite yet, but, I believe that if anybody can figure it out, it's gonna be the Jews.
It's
So
gonna be it's gonna yes, it's gonna be, it's gonna be the Jews and the Christians,
yeah,
okay?
and the Christians, you're absolutely right, because by the way, because because the Jewish faith is one of the few faiths that does not proselytize, that does not go out and try and convert people. That's the reason why there are so few Jews in the world. And of course, Muslims not only proselytize, but they also force everybody to convert, which is why there are so many Muslims in the world. And so this is something we cannot do alone. We are one of the smallest minorities that exists on planet Earth. And without our Christian brethren, we wouldn't have pushed the Muslim horde back during the Crusades. We wouldn't have pushed them back at any other time. Jerusalem would have fallen time and time again. And this is where we need to, like Patty was saying, we need to put our heads together, push back against those trying to divide us, and band together to fight evil. And this is the only way it's going to happen.
Well said. And on that note, I want to thank everybody that's been listening and following us from the bottom of our hearts. We will be back tomorrow. I'm not sure what time. Well, it doesn't really matter, but we will be back tomorrow. I want to thank everybody for listening. The dude was sorely missed today. I would have loved to hear. Well, we did get his input on the
A little
situation, and
bit.
we'll see. It's a very fluid situation. I find it very disconcerting that it had to happen on a Friday night. All these events always seem to be, all these announcements
Not an
continually
accident.
seem to be. It's not an accident at all, and it's actually pretty disgusting. And I will end it with that till we have more to talk about because I don't want to speculate too much. I don't want to. One thing we don't ever do is buy the rumor, even though it this feels a lot more than a rumor. So I want to remind everybody, go to the dailycheatsheet.com. That's the dailycheatsheet.com. Get some rest. Have a great weekend, everybody. And want to wish everybody a good morning, afternoon, and night world, wherever you are. God bless you all.